I am Deb Ryun. I'm the Executive Director for Wild Rivers Conservancy, formerly the St. Croix River Association. We've been around since 1911, all volunteer until 2009 when I was the first hired staff. We've grown from a budget of about $35,000 to about $1.4 million with 15 staff instead of one. So we've changed a bit in the last 15 years. So I like to start with what our watershed looks like. So we have almost an 8,000 square mile watershed, primarily forest covered in the top half. Pink in the bottom is development of some sort. Brown is egg. Next. So our riverway looks very different. So this is obviously the south. I think most of you recognize this as Prescott. Next. I'm going to go really fast. This is the northern part of the watershed. It can be miles to walk out of the river if you have an overturned canoe there. It's a long walk out. Next. I'm going to talk first about why this riverway is designated. These are scarlet tanagers. Next. Harner blue butterfly, endangered species. Next. This is winged maple leaf, one of the 5 federally endangered mussels in the riverway that was thought to be extinct. Next. This is just a nice prairie shot up near my house by Fish Lake. It's got Indian paintbrush, wood betony, and many, many other beautiful prairie plants. Next. I hope you can all see one bird does not look like the other. We occasionally have whooping cranes come through here. And this was at my house at Trade River. So we live in a pretty special place. Next. Otters, who doesn't love otters? Next. And we have a lot of recreation. This happens to be Stu Neville, my current board chair. He's a fly fishing guide on the Namakagon. They fly fish for muskies up on the Namakagon. Next. It's his mom, by the way. That's me on the Pakway-Wong flowage in 2013. Next. That's also me. It's my favorite photobomb of all time. I didn't know there was a deer crossing behind me. Next. And of course, there's different types of recreation down here in the Lower Riverway. Next. A lot of different types of fishing, obviously reel fishing. Next. We do programs with ice fishing. Next. We do snowshoe hikes. Next. And pausing just for a moment. This is one of the reasons people come here. We put in 2021, estimated about $51 million into the economy from people visiting the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. So it has a huge economic impact. It's obviously has intrinsic value, but it also has grand economic value. Next. This is what we're trying to not do. I think most of you probably recognize this as Prescott. Pretty much anytime you go up to that travel center at the top of the hill in Prescott, you can see the divide where the Mississippi River joins the St. Croix, and we don't want that. Next. Obviously, nutrients are one of our biggest issues. I'm going to go into a few of the threats for the riverway. Next. Asian carp are one of the big threats. I think they've been in the news significantly lately. The Minnesota legislature just approved a $12 million investment to put a barrier in on the Mississippi. So hopefully that will be installed before we have this problem. Next. Yellow iris. I think this is one of those plants that most people go, oh, it's beautiful. I can't like that. And the answer is nope, you can't like that. On the Namakagon where I started, and St. Croix is the same, but when I started on the Namakagon, I could do all 92 miles of my regular stretch and never see a yellow iris. It was always just the blue, and it's almost all now yellow. In 15 years, it's changed that much. Next. Anybody know what that one is? Zebra mussels. Yep, they're bad. We've been monitoring them for a number of years. There is a no-go spot at the boom site just north of Stillwater, and so far we have not detected them north of Stillwater. We monitor for them every year, and we hope it continues. Next. Curly leaf pondweed, another bad thing. Next. And then we have our heroes. So to the left is Gaylord Nelson. To the right is a young Fritz Mondale, who was a wonderful, wonderful Riverway champion. I was very honored to know in his later years. For everybody knows, this is a wild and scenic river designated primarily in 1968, right? All right. Next. I'm going to spend just a little time on the history because it didn't just happen. 1963, the federal agencies and corporations came together to start the discussion about wild and scenic rivers nationally. 65, Fritz and Gaylord introduced the first bill, didn't pass. 66 to 67, they tried again, didn't pass. 68, it almost didn't pass, but thank God for NSP, Northern States Power, now Xcel Energy. They went to Congress, testified, and said they'd give 25,000 acres of land, which really helped push the project forward. It was absolutely bipartisan support, and amazingly, it was signed that year. That was for the Upper Riverway, and that's basically St. Croix Falls North. The next section to be designated, well, I should talk about the cooperative agreement first, was in 1970. In 1972, Lower Riverway, and by that, if you can go to the next slide, the Lower Riverway, so this is St. Croix Falls, Taylor's Falls, that's 1968. This is the next Upper Lower Riverway in 72, and then in 74, 76 was that last section designated. Next. So I think I was primarily asked to talk about development pressures, and I will spend most of my time talking about development. This is a campaign that we ran in St. Croix Falls. The lots show on the upper left are what the lots that the village owns now. City of St. Croix Falls owns now. That was a deal done with Xcel Energy. We promoted because the city said that land would forever be protected. They tried to sell that property so somebody could build 12 houses there. You can see them over there. That parcel, the proposal, first of all, was to put row houses. They took out all the trees. They wanted to put riprap and they wanted to put lawn. They are also in a flood zone. So Xcel has flooding rights, not floodplain, but Xcel has rights to flood that should they need to. And the city was going to develop it. And the only reason that stopped was because there was huge public outcry, and the developer got tired of getting personally attacked. And I will say I didn't do that part of it, but we sure were not discouraging it. Next. I think a lot of people, when I say development, they think urban. And urban development is clearly down here one of our biggest issues. But rural development is an issue too. This is the location of where a proposed hog CAFO was supposed to go. Again, it's about 2 miles from my house. So I had a dog in the fight. 26,000 hogs were proposed there. All the red is high susceptibility to groundwater contamination. That entire watershed, subwatershed, groundwater, is one aquifer. The water is pristine. You can pump water out of those wells with zero treatment, except for in certain areas where there are clay, which is me. We have iron, but almost nobody has to treat anything in that whole area. So this is not only a bad place to put a CAFO. This is about the worst place. Primarily, subsurface water there is at 3 feet. The deepest is 25 feet, and it's all sand. So development of the agricultural type is just as, well, in my view, probably more horrid than a lot of the urban issues. Next. So fight going on right now in the town of Osceola. This is when it looked nice. The old Osceola Medical Center. It has been graffitied. The windows are all broken out. It looks terrible. It definitely needs to be gone. But they came in with a proposal that originally was over 45 feet. Some would argue it still is over 45 feet. But it is definitely going to be conspicuous from the river. The St. Croix Scenic Pollution filed a lawsuit. We did not in this case because we had something going on in Hudson at that time that we chose to focus our efforts there. But we just won this. It wasn't well, I guess it probably was a lawsuit. There you go. Judge overturned the city's approval of the project. Back to the city, I am fearful that will mean nothing because it was overturned on a technicality in that the judge determined that the city didn't have enough information. So I think they're going to just do some additional hearings, probably gather some more information, and probably come back with the same decision, which is to go ahead and build. Win some, lose some, I guess. Next. This is your project here in Hudson. So this is an interesting one. And I need to preface my words by saying we have, in my 15 years, never filed a lawsuit. And I hope to God never to have to file one again. But this was really extenuating circumstances in that the developer wanted 8 variances, which is insane. 8 variances to build this structure. And it's at 57 feet. The state law says 45 feet. How any city can override state law is, I don't even understand how people think that they can do that. I'm not going to go into all the reasons why we thought this was a bad idea, but we did think it was a bad idea. And actually, the village or the city staff at the time also agreed, but the elected officials didn't. So it went to the Board of Appeals. The first night of the hearing, we heard 3 of the 8. We were there from 5 until 10:30. They didn't get through it all. The third variance they heard was height. They denied. So we thought we were done, right? That was in something like April or May. There was another hearing set in July where we thought they were going to just hear the other 5. So we didn't show up because it was already a no-go. They actually reconsidered all 8 that night, and they approved all 8 that night. The reason I had to preface we don't want to sue is there was 0 time for us to react. We had 30 days to file a lawsuit, and that was our only avenue to stop the project. That's a semi-new Wisconsin state law thing that happened in July. So we had pretty much no choice. Wisconsin DNR, the guy that oversees this sort of stuff, was on vacation basically the entire month of July. 2 days before the 30 days was up, he came back. I'm on the phone with him. He can't do anything in 2 days legally. So luckily we had board member lawyers that were willing to step up and help us fight this battle. And it went to Judge Waterman, and we won on all 5 of our points. So I don't know exactly what's happening now. I was on the Hudson website today just to look to see if there was anything on the agendas in the Plan Commission or anywhere else about this proposal, and I have not seen anything on their website now. I will tell you that we've worked really well with the city of Hudson in the past. We've worked very well with the lawyer that the city uses. We have had good working relationships. We'd like to get back there again. We really don't want to sue. Like I said, in the beginning, I don't want to have to do another lawsuit ever again. That's not the way to get good jobs done. I think our biggest best discussion tonight at our table was about reimagining or reinvigorating Riverway champions. It's been over 50 years. Most of those original Riverway champions are dead or close to it, not engaged anymore. Many of the elected officials are certainly retired and gone. The people that wrote the Lower Riverway Plan, which was accepted by both states, all of the communities along the way, most of those people are now gone. We need to get those people back into positions of power. We need to remind people, again, what we have here. I cannot overemphasize that we have something unique in the world. In the world, folks. There are very few urban rivers that are as clean and wonderful as ours. And in fact, I would like you to tell me another one that's like it. We were at one point one of the top 10 cleanest rivers in the world. Yeah. It'd be nice to stay that way. I think the fact that we have so many different ecosystems from the far north, when you start in the northern part of the watershed and you take a canoe, kayak, boat, whatever, all the way down the river, you see different biomes change as you come down the river. And man, some of those are so unique. That Creeks Meadows, Sand Barrens area is again unique in the world. And the fact that we are home to the flyway and nesting grounds for so many neotropical birds and other critters is just phenomenal. I've had blanding turtle, an endangered species, nesting in my driveway, for heaven's sakes. I just am amazed at what we have here. So with that, I think you can go next slide. I suppose I have a couple other things to say. I should say, join our e-news list. It's free. If you go to our website up on the upper right-hand side, just click on that and you can get our e-news delivered to your mailbox, which is usually about every other week. It's not terribly frequent. Next slide. And if you want to become a member, we would be honored. We have about an 1,800 member group now. We are a 501c3 and we count on members to exist. Come to our fundraiser. They're ton of fun. Next. Now, if there are questions.
I just want to say something. The Wild River Conservancy does such great things, and as part of the Stillwater Ascension Church, we ask them to come as Mission in the Month to speak. So if you have churches and things like this, I think it's really important that they get involved with the river too, as part of creating and stuff. And they have been really generous to come and talk. And I just think that's part of what we're taking care of here. And I just thank you for being good stewards.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just, I think you're tomorrow. You have a biologist who's giving a Zoom presentation from noon to 1 on the impacts of climate change.
Lunch and learn. We're doing lunch and learn on climate change tomorrow. So if you, again, go to our website, just go to events, click on it. It's again, it's free. Alexis Monty, our climate resiliency staff, is leading that presentation. Thank you for bringing that up. Show a couple of things to take is my business card is right here, newsletter right here, maps right here. Lower Riverway, if you want a really fun little book about landowners in Lower Riverway, take one. Website is just wildriversconservancy.org. So it's all one word, .org. Thank you for that. Anyone else?
Well, I'm gonna pitch Deb one more thing. Iron Hands, and I'm a board member with them, but we're the official partners of the National Park Service. So if you want to help support the Riverway, you can do it directly through the partnership we have with the National Park Service in a way you can't do just through your tax dollars. So if it's important to you, this is a way in which you can contribute.
Really good point. We're kind of joined at the hip. When Park Service wasn't going to be able to hire their summer seasonal, we started an internship program so that we could have summer folks out in the park, and we've continued that going. Now we have 13 coming this year. We've got an intern doing reintroduction of winged maple leaf propagation studies. We've got when Park Service was going to lose their invasive species team, that was in the day. Yeah, Byron and I wrote a grant to get Dan Angelique, the only staff basically working on invasive species. Now we have, their staff is getting bigger again, but so we've stepped in where Park Service couldn't do. Thank you. Anybody else?
Was trying to find some recent information on the phosphorus levels. The phosphorus going into the St. Croix. Do you have numbers on that and how it is?
So our question was, how are the numbers with phosphorus? And actually, over the years, they're starting to come down a little bit, which is a wonderful thing. The TMDL plan was written and approved in 2012. This year, we have a grant from Wisconsin DNR to see where we are with the implementation of that water quality improvement plan, and it'll probably be 2 to 3 years before that's done. We will have new numbers soon.
Well, I'm the one who asked Deb to come, and I didn't know that this organization existed until a year ago myself. I want to thank her for showing up and for all this hard work. And I'm going to add a few remarks as a landowner in the Riverway. We're not on the water. I used to run a nonprofit too. There aren't any nonprofit people on the water. We're back in the woods. But next slide. So I think saving the lower St. Croix, where most of us live, requires that we get some role change and new inspiration, as has already been mentioned. I think we need to get the DNR and probably the closer. Sorry, there. Okay, we've got to get the DNR and St. Croix County back on the mission of saving the river. Next one, please. So this is the only river protected its full length, so protected in quotes. These other ones are scenic and wild rivers, but there isn't enough of them to protect the whole river. They're all the little bits. Only the St. Croix qualifies as scenic and wild for its length or with some qualifications. And this is the map, just a different version. From here on up, it's the National Park Service. But and here's where this story gets complicated. From the boom site, Stillwater South, in the 1976 law, management authority was given to the states. So the National Park Service has the wildest part, and Minnesota and Wisconsin are responsible from Stillwater South. Next slide. So there is a management standard and rules, and they have the status of law, as I understand it, in Wisconsin. and they're the Riverway rules. It's an overlay on zoning, about development, cutting trees, herbicide use, etc. And if you hear about the Riverway, it's this thin strip. It's about 3 houses deep where I live. We're the third house. The average is a quarter mile, apparently, all the way up. That property isn't owned by the National Park Service or the states. It's almost all in private hands. But there are special rules that are supposed to apply to that thin strip. Next slide. We moved out from Minneapolis 35 years ago and bought a house in the Riverway. Back then, to get a new deck, we had to have the Wisconsin DNR review the deck plan. The Troy Township reviewed the deck plan. St. Croix County reviewed the deck plan. The DNR was running monitoring to see if the Riverway rules were being followed. Boats on the river, people walking down through the woods. Violators were fined. One of our neighbors bought a new house on the riverfront, cut the trees to improve the view, got a $10,000 fine. That's enough to notice, even with the Riverway property. Now, there's only St. Croix County left. Troy Township doesn't do this anymore. Wisconsin DNR has been moved to an advisory role. I don't know how that happened. I've been trying to figure that out. But basically, it's now up to the county. The Riverway rules in the lower St. Croix on the Wisconsin side are only enforced, if at all, by the county. Next. So, who monitors? Nobody, except maybe neighbors. So you have to turn in your neighbor, not exactly community building. My wife, who's done most of this work, she's a PhD ecologist, finally decided we had to turn in neighbors. We called when a neighbor, and again, a new homeowner, clear cut in front of their house on the Riverway. We called the county. The county development department said, oh, yeah, they can cut the trees and ask for a permit or permission afterward. I quote, recently we went to a county board of adjustment hearing for a variance and a retroactive permit for a house revision, a deck expansion, screening it in and so on, that was done inside of the river, not exactly on the bluff. The request was for a retroactive building permit. It was granted. There's a $300 extra charge. So I went up afterward and talked to the Board of Adjustment guys and said, so you can do whatever and come in and get a building permit when it's done? And they said, yeah, but it'll cost you $300 extra. I said, okay, have you ever said no to a retroactive permit? Is there any teeth to this at all? Well, we've only been here 7 years. Have there been any no's in 7 years? Nope. They've always said yes. $300 is the penalty for building whatever and getting a permit afterward. Next. In the Riverway, under the rules, you can apply herbicide like the buckthorn. It's really good to get rid of buckthorn. It says you can direct topical application to cut stems. So you cut the plant, you paint it with a brush. Next. Oh, that's all I had. All right, sorry. I had a later version, but I didn't get it to you. Basically, the current method of applying herbicides where we are in our little neighborhood is to ride around with an ATV and a hose. It kills everything. Not trees, they're hurt, but it kills all ground plants. It kills cut buckthorn and everything else, all native species, everything. About 20% of our neighborhood has now been covered that way in the last 3 years. 5 landowners. It's spreading. Complete violation of the Riverway rules. We have we now have neighbors who hate us, turned this into the county. We're not aware of any action because they've done it over and over again on the same property. So that's the end of my story. I'm hoping the sad story, it makes us think we need to do something different. And that would be to get our leaders and our political people back supporting the Riverway.
So we've got board members here. We help, get them elected. So think about it, guys. How can we influence? Where do we start? Let us know, because I think this group is captivated and wants to do something. That's what I love about this group. I mean, we bring a lot of things to you to get you informed and then activate. Right? We want to activate. So that I really appreciate everybody coming tonight. Wow, it just sort of okay, but there is hope. I think there is hope. We just need to. I'm always hopeful, but we need to act on it. So now that we're aware, anyways, anything else anybody wants to bring up? Mary.
I have a question if there could be more explanation of what the Riverway champions were.
Oh, yeah. I'd love to hear that too. I don't know.
Riverway champions, Bueller.
Who are they, or what's the?
You said there used to be, and now there aren't. What are they, and
They're just people like the elected officials. They're elected officials, like Gaylord or the folks in St. Croix County and Hudson and Bayport, who were on the city councils and boards that went to all of those meetings that created the Lower Riverway Management Plan. So all of the rules that are in place were written by elected officials, basically. So you need elected officials who are Riverway champions back. And I think it's not just elected officials. Somebody mentioned it's working with school kids. We have a youth summit coming up. It's all online, super easy to attend, free for kids. Really developing those new, and that's not just Riverway, but basically Earth champions, stewards who are going to help us help humans exist on this planet. I don't worry about the world. I worry about humans existing in a couple of centuries. So it is really making sure that we get that next generation of stewards activated, engaged, and hopeful. As somebody said, it's really about hope. It's not the doom and gloom. Really doesn't motivate people. It's hope. It is the Blandings turtle in the driveway. It is the fact that I have bears and swans and all of those wonderful things.
It is love. I mean, we protect what we love, and we protect what we know, as Aldo Leopold said. You have to know it to love it. And there are frog censuses you can get involved in and get kids involved in and grandkids involved in. There are monarch censuses. There's a whole bunch of cool censuses of different species that we can get kids involved in, and these activities with the youth. And we're a lot of, let me just say, gray-haired people here. And we have grandkids, some of us. I don't yet. I hope to. But that we are, I mean, think of so many ecologists had to have somebody, a mother or a father or a grandmother or a grandfather, who got them interested in the natural world to love it, to take care of it. And that's our job, as well as all the voting and activism. So I just have to, sorry.
Thank you. All right, this ties into Earth Fest also. Yeah.
So we had a number of you were at our Wisconsin Conservation Congress meeting yesterday, and there will be a survey that's coming out, and that'll be tomorrow. And there's some questions on there that talk about the St. Croix River. So listening to this tonight reminded me for us to remember to fill out that survey. I'll put it on the DEMS strategy site. You'll be able to go to it, or you can go right to the DNR website. There'll be another number of other questions about fish limits and bag limits and hunting and other things, but there is one that we know on there that specifically addresses the St. Croix River, and it is filling out a survey. It's a survey that you fill out, and the survey results go to the DNR, and then they review that and make decisions based on that. I don't have that in front of me right now, but there will be. I can put that on the strategy website. Okay.
I have an Earth Fest announcement. I'm on the Earth Fest planning committee because I need more things to do. But ahead of the noon Earth Fest event on the 20th of April, Paul Douglas will be giving a talk at 11 a.m. in the Falcon's Nest of the University Center. So it's in the same building. So come early and hear him. He wasn't originally a climate kind of skeptic, and now he's turned around and he's always about it's not hopeless and we're not helpless.